You know that feeling, right? That visceral sinking feeling.
Oh, yeah. The pit in your stomach.
You're sitting in a boardroom, maybe you just opened a high-stakes email, and you realize you're being tapped for something.
Yeah.
Massive. A promotion, a big project.
The cold sweat starts?
Exactly. The cold sweat. And immediately, your brain just starts printing out this long, itemized list of every single reason why you are absolutely the wrong person for this job.
It's what we call the universal resume of disqualification.
Right. It's this deep, terrifying sense of, I am not ready for this.
And we all just assume that you have to be ready, that you get credible, then you get confident, and only then can you actually act.
Confidence, then the calling.
I bet.
We're looking at some source material today that suggests we have that order completely, 100% backward.
Completely backward. And honestly, if we get this right, it changes everything about how we look at leadership, at fear, at everything.
So let's get into it. We're doing a deep dive today into a source called Moses, Hineni, from the place of fear. And the central idea is, well, it's both a huge relief and kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
It argues that your hesitation, it isn't a flaw. It's actually the starting point.
It's a fascinating rereading of, one of the most famous stories in the world. We're looking at Exodus chapters 3 and 4. But I want to be clear, this is not the movie version.
No Cecil B. DeMille here.
Yeah.
No Charlton Heston holding a staff.
Not at all. We're not at the Red Sea. We're way before that. We're zooming in on the moment of the burning bush. And the argument is that you don't need to be ready. You don't even need to be fearless. You just need to be present.
Present, not perfect. It sounds great, like a motivational poster, but living it out is excruciating. So let's set the scene. To understand this concept, this word Hineni, we have to know where Moses is when this all goes down.
Yeah, and the context is, it's everything. If you skip this part, you miss the entire point. At this moment in the narrative, Moses is, and this isn't an exaggeration, he's a total failure.
Whoa.
Total failure. That sounds a little harsh for, Moses.
But look at the facts from the text. 40 years before this, he was a prince of Egypt. He had it all power, education, status.
Right, he was at the top of the food chain, and he tried to be a hero.
He tried. He saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew slave, and he snapped. He killed the guy. He tried to force liberation with his own two hands.
And it backfired. Horribly.
Spectacularly. He didn't free anyone. His own people rejected him. Pharaoh wanted him dead. So he runs. He becomes a murderer and a fugitive.
He runs away to Midian, which is basically the middle of nowhere.
The absolute wilderness. And he's there for 40 years. Think about that. 40 years. It's a lifetime. He's just herding sheep.
And the source points out a really stinging detail.
Oh, it's brutal. They're not even his sheep.
Right. They belong to his father-in-law, Jethro, so his career path has just completely nosedived.
He went from the C-suite in an empire to, like, an unpaid internship for his in-laws in a remote office. He's been completely stripped of his ego, his ambition, his identity, which, ironically, makes him the last person you'd ever recruit for a nation-building project.
Exactly. Unhireable.
Yeah.
And that is precisely when the encounter happens. He's on a mountain called Horeb, which means desolation, and he sees this burning bush. But the fire is just the billboard. The real event is the sound.
The voice.
A voice calls out, "Moses, Moses," and Moses gives a one-word answer in Hebrew, Hineni.
Okay, so Hineni. This is the whole thing. We need to unpack this word. It translates as "here I am," right?
Roughly, yeah. But "here I am" in English is usually just about your location. I'm over by the coffee machine.
It's a GPS coordinate. Present.
Hineni is different. The source calls it exposed readiness. It's a spiritual posture. It means I'm fully available, I'm listening, I'm open. It's not about geography. It's about vulnerability.
But here's the paradox, and the source really leans into this. He says, Hineni, which sounds so ready, so obedient.
Here I am. Send me.
Yeah. But then he spends the next 2 chapters arguing with God, trying to get out of the job.
And that's the whole key. That's the insight for anyone listening who has ever felt like an imposter. He says Hineni before he feels confident. It proves that you can be available and absolutely terrified at the exact same time.
So it's not I am sufficient, it's just I am here.
That's it. Hineni comes before understanding, and because he's here, he has to face his fears. The source actually breaks his resistance down into 5 specific objections, and they are shockingly modern.
Let's walk through them because, this feels very familiar.
Yeah?
First up is the identity crisis.
Right. Moses asks, "Who am I that I should go?"
Which is a pretty fair question. He's a has-been, he's a shepherd.
He's looking at his own resume and he's just saying, the math doesn't work. I'm not the guy. It's the fear of insignificance.
Okay, then he shifts to the fear of ignorance. He says, what's his name? What am I supposed to tell them?
This is the I don't have the data fear. The fear that someone in the meeting is going to ask you a question you can't answer and you'll just look like a total fraud.
I know that one well. Okay, number 3.
The fear of rejection. He says, they will not believe me.
The credibility gap.
Exactly. He's thinking, why would anyone listen to me? I failed them 40 years ago. He's terrified of being laughed out of the room.
And then number 4, this is the big one for me, the fear of inadequacy.
I am slow of speech and tongue. The competence gap. He looks at his own tool set, his own abilities, and says, I am physically incapable of doing this job.
He's basically saying, you need a spokesperson, and I can barely speak. It's a hardware problem.
Right. And then finally, when all the other excuses run out, he just lays his cards on the table.
The fear of responsibility.
Please, just send someone else. It's total abdication. He just wants to go back to his quiet life with the sheep.
It's so relatable. That moment where you just think, can't I just stay here where it's safe?
It's much safer. But here's where it gets so interesting. How does God respond to all this? Because if I was his life coach, I'd give him a pep talk, right?
You've got this, Moses. Believe in yourself.
Manifest it, yeah. But God doesn't do that, not once. When Moses asks, who am I? God doesn't say, you're great. He just says, I will be with you.
That's a total redirect. He doesn't even answer the question about Moses.
He recenters the whole idea of authority. The source says authority is relational, not internal. It doesn't come from Moses' resume. It comes from God's presence.
So the question, who am I, is actually irrelevant.
It's the wrong question. The only question that matters is who is with me. And God anchors Moses' authority in his own existence. I am, WHO, I am, not in Moses' skills.
And speaking of skills, or lack thereof, I thought the response to the stutter was fascinating. God doesn't just heal him.
No, he doesn't. He basically says, who do you think made the human mouth? But he leaves the limitation. He gives him his brother, Aaron, to be the mouthpiece.
Which seems so inefficient. Why not just fix the problem?
Because the problem, the limitation, forces dependency. If Moses was a perfect speaker, he might start thinking he could do it all himself. God accommodates the fear by giving him a partner, but he doesn't remove the weakness.
But there is a line. The text says, God is patient with all the fear and the questions. But when Moses finally says, send someone else.
That's when God's anger burns. The source draws a hard line there. Fear is okay. Doubts are okay. But refusal, abdication, that's crossing the line. God demands participation, even if it's what the source calls trembling participation.
Trembling participation. I love that. You can be shaking and still be exactly where you need to be.
Exactly. And this isn't just a one-off story about Moses. This is like God's standard operating procedure.
It's a pattern.
It's absolutely a pattern. The biblical narrative is just filled with God systematically choosing the unready, the unqualified, the unlikely.
Okay, so give us the highlight reel. Who else fits this mold?
Well, take Gideon. We think of him as this mighty warrior, but when we first meet him, where is he?
He's hiding in a wine press.
Hiding in a hole in the ground because he's scared of raiders, and God calls him mighty warrior while he's hiding. And then, for the battle, God shrinks his army from 32,000 men down to 300.
Which makes zero military sense.
Unless your strategy is total reliance. If you win with 300 guys in some clay pots, you know it wasn't you.
It's that principle from the source. Shared inadequacy amplifies God's glory.
Yes. The cracks are where the light gets through. You see it with Jeremiah, who says, I'm just a kid. You see it with David, the forgotten shepherd boy his own dad didn't even think to present.
And even in the New Testament with Mary.
Mary is maybe the best example. A poor young girl with no status, and she asks, how can this be? She has questions, but then she lands on the ultimate Hineni. Let it be to me according to your word.
So if you're listening to this and you feel profoundly unqualified for something, you're actually in pretty good company.
You're in the best company. In fact, feeling totally qualified might be the real red flag.
Okay, but let's make this practical. Fear just feels like fear.
Yeah.
You know, my heart races either way. The source makes a really helpful distinction between holy fear and faithless fear.
Right. Physiologically, they feel the same. But holy fear, or yira in Hebrew, is really awe. It's that feeling at the edge of the Grand Canyon. You feel small, but it draws you in. It leads to dependence.
You grab the handrail.
Exactly. Faithless fear, on the other hand, leads to paralysis. It makes you hide in the wine press. It says, I'm small, therefore I'm useless. Holy fear says, I'm small, therefore I need to hold on to the one who is big.
It turns fear from a stop sign into a compass.
That's a great way to put it.
So let's bring this home for everyone listening. They're not leading a nation. They're trying to launch a business or lead a struggling team. The source gives a 4-step fear-to-faith framework.
Right. It's super practical. Step 1, identify the fear. And you have to be really specific.
So not just, I'm anxious.
No, it's, I fear I will misrepresent the data in the meeting. Or, I fear my team thinks I'm too young to lead them. You have to name it to tame it.
Makes sense.
Mm.
Okay, step 2.
Interrogate the fear. Ask yourself, what does this fear reveal about where I'm putting my trust? If I'm terrified of looking stupid, it means I'm trusting my own intellect to be my savior.
Ouch. That stings a little. It exposes the ego behind it.
It does. It's a diagnostic tool. Then, step 3, anchor in promise. You have to replace that worst-case scenario playing in your head with a greater reality. For Moses, it was, I will be with you.
For us, it might be, my worth isn't tied to this project's outcome.
Exactly. Something more solid than your performance. And finally, step 4, and this is the big one, act in availability. This is the Hineni moment. You have to move before you feel ready.
That's the hardest part. We want to feel confident first.
But it doesn't work that way. The source argues that obedience cultivates confidence. The feeling follows the action. You have to step into the river, and then the waters part.
There's one last image from that story that I think just captures all of this. The shoes.
Take off your sandals, for the place where you were standing is holy ground.
We always hear that as just a sign of respect.
It is respect, but it's deeper. Shoes are technology. They're protection. They separate us from the ground. Taking them off means removing your protection.
It's skin on holy ground.
It is holy vulnerability. It's standing there without your armor, without your resume, without your defenses. And that's the only place transformation can actually happen. You can't be changed if you're all buffered up.
That just reframes everything. We think a calling is about putting on the armor, getting the title. This suggests it's about taking the armor off.
That's it. The future belongs to the available, not the perfectly ready. If you wait until you're not afraid, you are going to wait forever. Moses was afraid. Gideon was afraid. But they showed up.
This has been, wow, it's completely flipped my script on what it means to be qualified. We spend so much energy hiding our weaknesses, our stutters, our past failures.
And yet that very thing, your wilderness, your weakness, that might be the exact place your calling is being forged. What if the thing you think disqualifies you is actually what qualifies you? Because it forces you to rely on something so much bigger than yourself.
That's the provocative thought I want to leave everyone with. What if you stop trying to be fearless and start trying to be present? What if Hineni just, here I am, is enough?
It was enough for Moses. It was enough to change the world.
Thank you so much for walking us through this. This has given me, and I hope everyone listening, a lot to think about next time that pit in the stomach shows up.
It was my pleasure.
And to you listening, thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.